The Night's Watch is pledged to take no part in the quarrels of the realm. Yet, over the centuries, Lord Commanders, more proud than wise, forgot their vows, and near destroyed us all with their ambition. Benjen Stark to Jon Snow, A Storm of Swords, Chapter 55, Jon 7. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch is the highest ranking officer of the Order, ruling from Castle Black and commanding all of the castles along the wall, the Brothers, and the Order's operations. Among the free folk beyond the wall, the Lord Commander is often known as Lord Crow, a name derived from the common term Crow for members of the Night's Watch. The Lord Commander holds absolute authority over the Night's Watch, commanding all of its castles, officers, men. He is supported directly by the Maester of Castle Black, the First Ranger, the Lord Steward, and the First Builder, among other senior officers beneath him. A Lord Commander serves for life, his term only ending with his death. Thus, many Lord Commanders were older, seasoned men. They reside in the top 2 floors of the Lord Commander's Tower at Castle Black, being one of the very few brothers to have their own private chambers. His squire is traditionally a promising youth of good birth, chosen to be trained for leadership. By custom, this squire also serves as the Lord Commander's personal steward, so they can watch and learn from the Commander. The Night's Watch is as old as the wall itself, predating it in fact, dating back an estimated 8,000 years, but even that fact is not certain, with some claiming the Age of Heroes to have happened a couple of thousand years ago rather than 8,000. Supposedly, there has been 998 commanders of the Watch, but given the sheer amount of time we are dealing with, it's truly impossible to know how accurate that figure is, with the majority of these commanders lost to time. It is very possible this number has been inflated as the ages have passed, and the Watch has effectively lost count. Most of the Lord Commanders we know about tend to have been after and just before the Targaryen conquest of Westeros, but we do have some details of commanders dating back to thousands of years ago, even if they appear to be closer to legend than fact. When a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch dies, any sworn brother may declare himself a candidate, or can be nominated by another. Every member of the Watch has a vote, and all votes are counted as equal, no matter the man. Though those stationed away from Castle Black had their vote cast by their garrison commander rather than in person. To be chosen, a candidate must secure 2/3 of the vote. If no man reaches this threshold, the brothers reconvene again the next day and vote a second time. There is no limit to how long a choosing may last. One election in the Watch's history famously went on for 2 years and required 700 ballots before a victor eventually emerged. There are a handful of known Lord Commanders whose time of service is not quite clear, but the earliest we have record of is the now infamous figure known only as the Night's King, whom was said to have been the 13th Lord Commander. According to legend, the Night's King lived in the early Age of Heroes, not long after the Wall's completion. As Lord Commander, he became enthralled by a mysterious woman glimpsed from atop the wall, her skin pale as moonlight, her eyes bright as blue stars, and her touch cold as ice. Fearless, he pursued and claimed her, and in giving her his seed, he gave her his soul as well. He brought this uncanny woman to the Night Fort. At the time, this was the main castle of the Watch, and proclaimed her his queen, and named himself a king. Through unnatural sorcery, he bent the Brothers of the Watch to his will, ruling the Night Fort as his own dominion for 13 years, with his corpse queen beside him. In those dark years, countless atrocities were said to have been committed, their tales still whispered in the north. At last, Brynden the Breaker, a king in the north of House Stark, and Jeor Mormont, a king beyond the wall, joined forces to overthrow him and free the Watch. When the Night King fell, it was discovered that he had been making sacrifices to the others using the Black Gate below the Night Fort. In the aftermath, all records of him were destroyed, his name struck from memory, forbidden and forgotten. The legend of the Night's King is one of the most often repeated tales of the North, and its details shift with the teller, to the point it becomes very far removed from what was likely historically fact. In some versions, the Night's King is said to have been a Bolton, a Woodfoot, an Umber, a Flint, a Norrie, and the most persistent versions say he was a Stark. Within the Citadel, most archmaesters dismiss this tale as pure myth, though a few allow that some early Lord Commander may have indeed attempted to carve out a kingdom of his own. Some scholars propose that this supposed corpse queen was not a supernatural being at all, but a Barrowlander, perhaps a daughter of the Barrow King, with her otherworldly qualities born of exaggeration over the centuries. One thing that is often overlooked is while the maesters may form these views given the sheer amount of time involved, this is still their best guess. If these events have any basis in truth, it may explain one enduring custom of the Night's Watch, the refusal to build southern-facing walls at their keeps. According to this line of thought, the Watch ensures the strongholds never again could be turned into a fortress against the realms they were sworn to protect. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch is a lord, first and foremost. He must be able to treat with other lords, and with kings as well. He must be a man worthy of respect. Dennis Mallister to Samwell Tarly, A Storm of Swords, Chapter 78, Samwell 5. Around 500 years before Aegon's conquest, a Runcel Hightower became the Lord Commander of the Watch, said by Benjen Stark, a first ranger of the Watch, that he was an overly ambitious man. Runcel forgot his vows to the Watch and attempted to bequeath Castle Black and the Night's Watch in its entirety to his bastard son upon his death. Runcel's ambition almost destroyed the Watch in the process, but his efforts to subvert the traditions of the electoral system ultimately failed. Osric Stark was a member of House Stark who became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch around 400 BC. However, we have no indication of the number of Lord Commander he was. Osric was only 10 years old when he was elected Commander of the Watch, making him the youngest chosen for the position. Maester Balder, who wrote The Edge of the World during Osric's rule of 60 years, believed he may have been voted as a Lord Commander as a puppet for another brother or group of brothers, but the fact he was in command for over 60 years suggests as little to this idea. Just prior to and during Aegon's conquest, the Lord Commander of the Watch was a younger brother to Harrenhal, the King of Isles and Rivers. He led the Night's Watch when Aegon the Conqueror invaded Westeros with his dragons. Although Lord Commander Hor commanded 10,000 swords at the wall, he remained loyal to the Watch and his vow, and did not intervene when Harren and his sons were slain by Aegon and Balerion during the burning of Harrenhal. It seems that Aegon left Lord Commander Hor in command of the Watch after the conquest, seeing no threat or reason to try and remove him. Prior to the conquest, we know also of a Lord Commander, Kroll, who led the Watch over 1,000 years ago, but other than that, we know nothing else of him. There are a handful of other Lord Commanders that we know predate Aegon's conquest. However, we have no way of placing them within the timeline. There was at one stage a Roderick Flint, a member of House Flint, who became the commander. Flint attempted to make himself a king beyond the wall, almost bringing down the Night's Watch in its entirety in the process. He is considered one of the worst commanders the Night's Watch has ever had. There was also Marq Rankenfell, better known as Mad Marq. Again, one of the worst commanders the Watch has ever had. How he came to be known as Mad is not known, but the fact he earned that title tells us a lot about the man. Robin Hill, another poor commander, whose era is not clear. Given his name, it seems he was a bastard from the Westerlands, who rose to become the Lord Commander. While the Watch has no discrimination when it comes to social status, most Lord Commanders do often come from noble houses. It is possible, however, that Lord Commander Hill could be a Lord's bastard. Tristan Mudd, of the now legendary extinct House Mudd, the ancient kings of the rivers and hills, was one of 3 Lord Commanders of his era who nearly brought down the Watch when they chose to forego their vows in favour of their pride and ambition. Finally, we know of Osbert Caswell, known as the Black Centaur, who was a member of House Caswell and held the role of Lord Commander for 9 years before his sudden death in the night. The book, Annals of the Black Centaur by Septon Jorquin, was written about his era. We know a lot more about the Lord Commanders of the Watch post Aegon's conquest, perhaps due to a more unified history of Westeros. As we know, Lord Commander Hoare was in command of Castle Black at the time of Aegon's conquest, and did not come to the aid of his brother King Harren the Black when Aegon burned Harrenhal. While we cannot say for sure, it does seem as if he was not removed from his position as Lord Commander. The next known Lord Commander is Lothor Burley, who was active during the early reign of King Jaehaerys I. In 58 AC, Lord Commander Burley received Queen Alysanne Targaryen at Castle Black during her famed Progress of the North. Forewarned of her arrival by Lord Alaric Stark, Lothor assembled 800 black brothers to honour the Queen when she arrived at the Wall. A welcoming feast was held in her name, where mammoth meat, mead and stout were served. Though Burley privately fretted that his hall and fare were unworthy of a queen, Alysanne accepted all with grace and praised the hospitality of the Watch. During her stay, Alysanne proposed that the Night Fort, the oldest and grandest of the Wall's castles, but ruinously expensive to maintain, be replaced with a more practical stronghold nearby. She personally funded the new castle with her own jewels, even parting with her crown. The result was Deep Lake, with a statue there in her honour and built to serve the Watch more efficiently. Alysanne also convinced Lord Commander Burley to escort her south to Molestown, where she convened one of her famed women's courts. Hearing the concerns of the townswomen, including the brothel workers who dwelt there beneath the shadow of the Wall, this would influence Alysanne's advocacy for the outlawing of the right to the First Night. Her time at the Wall also inspired Alysanne to convince her husband, King Jaehaerys, and Lord Alaric Stark to cede more land to the Night's Watch as a new gift, so the Watch could better fund itself and sustain itself. Jack Musgood, known early in his time as Lord Commander as Jolly Jack and later Sleepy Jack, was a member of House Musgood who rose to become Lord Commander. We don't know when he was elected, but he died sometime between 226 and 239 AC. His reputation as Lord Commander is considered poor. Under Jack's watch, a king beyond the Wall called Raymond Redbeard and his large free-folk host slipped past the Wall and headed south. This drew the forces of House Umber and House Stark to Long Lake, where Raymond and Lord Willem Stark were both killed in battle. The Night's Watch arrived too late to participate in the battle and were ordered by Artos Stark to dispose of the dead. This series of events led to Sleepy Jack earning his nickname. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? The riddle ran, 1,000 eyes and one. Some claimed that the king's hand was a student of the dark arts who could change his face, put on the likeness of a one-eyed dog, even turn into mist. Packs of gaunt grey wolves hunted down his foes, men said, and Karen crows spied for him and whispered secrets in his ear. Most of the tales were only tales. Dunk did not doubt, but no one could doubt that Bloodraven had informers everywhere. The thoughts of Duncan the Tall on Brynden Rivers, the Mystery Knight. Brynden Rivers, also known to many as Bloodraven, is perhaps the most infamous Lord Commander the Watch has ever had, not for his life as Lord Commander, but that before it. Bloodraven was one of the great bastards of King Aegon IV. He would play a key role during the First Blackfyre Rebellion, with Brynden and his Raven's Teeth killing his half-brother, Daemon Blackfyre, and his twin sons at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, before fighting a one-on-one duel with another half-brother and long-term rival, Jeor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel. Jeor escaped the battle, and Bloodraven lost an eye in the fighting. He became a feared and dark figure in the years after the rebellion, becoming a feared spymaster and later handed the king for King Aerys I and later King Maekar Targaryen. Brynden was rumoured to be a sinister sorcerer and spymaster who effectively ruled the kingdom with spies and spells as Lord Bloodraven. A popular riddle among the small folk asked, how many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? 1,000 eyes and one. His primary weapon was a rare weirwood longbow, but he also possessed one of House Targaryen's Valyrian steel blades, Dark Sister. He would play a key role in the Second and Third Blackfyre Rebellions before his eventual downfall. After King Maekar's death in 233 AC, Brynden, acting as Hand of the King, summoned a great council at King's Landing to resolve the dispute of succession. Aenys Blackfyre, the Blackfyre claimant, seeking a peaceful resolution, requested permission to attend. Brynden granted him safe conduct from Tyrosh, yet upon Aenys' arrival, the Goldcloaks seized him, and he was subsequently beheaded within the Red Keep. When the Great Council concluded, it selected Maekar's youngest son as King Aegon V. The new king's first decree was to place Brynden under arrest for orchestrating Aenys' death. According to Maester Aemond Targaryen, Brynden was confined in the dungeons at the Red Keep. He defended his actions, insisting he had surrendered his own honour for the good of the realm, but King Aegon rejected this plea. Instead of execution, Aegon granted him the choice of taking the Black, which Brynden accepted. When Maester Aemon departed for the Wall in 233 AC, he travelled under the protection of Sir Duncan the Tall of the Kingsguard, a close friend to King Aegon V. An honour guard of new recruits from the Watch accompanied him. 200 men in all, including prisoners sentenced to the Black. Among them was Brynden Rivers, included many former archers of his own Raven's Teeth. Brynden also brought the Valyrian steel blade Darksister with him on the journey. In 239 AC, Brynden was elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. 13 years later, he vanished while ranging beyond the Wall, leaving only speculation and legend in his wake. Lord Commander Orgyle was the 996th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. He's the only known Dornish Lord Commander. He joined the Watch sometime prior to the service of Sir Denys Mallister. During his command, Castle Black maintained strict scheduled patrols, sending rangers east towards Eastwatch by the Sea every third day and west towards the Shadow Tower every second day. On one occasion, he travelled to Winterfell with a small escort of 12 men, among them the future King Beyond the Wall, Mance Rayder, to meet with Lord Eddard Stark. During this visit, a young Robb Stark and Jon Snow prepared a mound of snowballs above the gate to drop on the unsuspecting brothers. Mance discovered their scheme but chose not to expose them. Following Lord Commander Orgyle's death, the Brothers of the Watch elected Jeor Mormont as the new Lord Commander in 288 AC. Jeor was known as the Old Bear. He was previously the head of House Mormont and Lord of Bear Island. He abdicated his seat in favour of his son, Sir Jeor Mormont, and joined the Watch. Jeor rapidly rose through the ranks and was elected Lord Commander in 288 AC. Jeor viewed the Watch's dwindling strength with growing alarm and took seriously the increasing dangers posed by the free folk beyond the Wall. Acting on the counsel of his first ranger, Benjen Stark, he abandoned the predictable patrol scheme of his predecessor. In its place, Jeor instituted a system of irregular shifting patrols, altering both in number of rangers sent out and the days on which they departed, making it far harder for wildlings to anticipate the Watch's movement. At times, he's also dispatched larger parties to temporarily garrison one of the many abandoned castles of the Watch, holding it for a fortnight or a moon's turn before returning to Castle Black. In 299 AC, he would lead a great ranging beyond the Wall to investigate claims of Mance Rayder rallying a huge wildling army intent on marching on the Wall, and to also investigate the apparent return of the others. After being attacked by the others at the Fist of the First Men, Jeor and the Watch retreated south, stopping at Craster's Keep. While there, Jeor was killed by a small group of mutineers who took control of the keep, while loyal members of the Watch fled south to the Wall. Jon Snow, the bastard son of Eddard Stark, was elected the 998th Lord Commander following Jeor's death. Jon had been acting as Jeor's personal steward prior to his death, but was seen as a controversial pick by some given he had spent considerable time with the wildlings beyond the Wall, in theory as a captive, with some questioning if he had willingly broken his Night's Watch vows. Lord Commander Snow rose to the role during a testing time in the wake of the Battle of Beneath the Wall, plus the looming threat of the others and King Stannis Baratheon garrisoning the Wall. Rogue elements of the Watch's upper leadership disagreed with Jon's decisions regarding the allowing of the wildlings south of the Wall, and his intent to march on House Bolton, who currently hold Winterfell. During this coup, Jon is stabbed multiple times by his brothers. His current status is unknown. He may or may not be alive.